Yes, guys, what's happening? And welcome back to the channel and welcome to today's live stream where we're going to be chatting all things Everton and their search for a new manager, which is reaching the concluding stages. The final three candidates were having their last round of interviews today or possibly already had them. And they are Frank Lampard, Duncan Ferguson and Vitor Pereira. And joining me today is Kieran from Kieran Rants to discuss the candidates, who his preferred man for the job is, and what's going to happen at Everton next. Mate, thank you for joining me as always. It's been a bit of a whirlwind season for Everton so far, hasn't it? Obviously, you had the controversial appointment of Rafa Benitez, the sacking of Marcel Brands, multiple members of staff being got rid of. And the first four games are really as good as it got for Everton this season. I mean, briefly, before we get into the candidates, just a quick overall view of what was essentially a mess in Benitez's reign.
Yeah, well, I mean, it lasted, 200 days, Rafa Benitez's reign. He came in around the start of the Euros. We all thought, you know what's going on here? You know, at the very start, we were questioning his appointment. Why are we going in for an ex-Liverpool man? You know, why are we going in for someone who's, managed at China for a year previously? He managed at Newcastle, did an all right job at Newcastle, to be fair to him, but we were really questioning his appointment, but people were willing to give him time. Then we had the first four games, brilliant stuff on it. I mean, Burnley, Southampton, Brighton, we all smashed them out the park. And ever since then, it's just been falling off a cliff, really. No win in 2 months up until December, and that was against Arsenal that we won our first game. After that, we got a good draw against Chelsea, I guess. We got through against Hull, but really it was a lackluster sort of, end of 2021, to be honest with you. September, October, November, December, all a write-off, man. Nothing really happened. I think we picked up around, 5 points in that time, including January. You look at January now, Norwich, we lost. I think this is the biggest loss, really. Norwich, we went 2-0 down within 20 minutes, and that really did signal the end of Rafa's reign at Everton. And you know what? We've wasted a lot of time on Rafa, and I think we've got to the point now where we're in a situation where the board backed Rafa and solely Rafa. You see with the likes of the head of medical leaving, you see with Marcel Brands leaving, who was our sporting director. You see all of these people leaving because of Rafa Benitez, especially, the man himself, Luca Digne, leaving because of Rafa Benitez. And then only a few days later, Rafa Benitez himself leaves, and we're really in a pickle right now where it's like, where do we go from here? How do we pick up the pieces? And this is obviously the first step because you have to get a manager in, don't you? And I'm sure we'll get into it. But on Rafa, really just a waste of time. And he's put us in a really hard position now because we are on the verge of a relegation battle. As much as I hate to admit it, we really are. And that's what he's done. I don't care what people have got to say about, if you gave Rafa time, you would have done better. Whatever. I don't think he would have. He picked up 5 points since September. That is horrendous. I mean, if that was Chelsea, he'd be sacked by about October time. He'd be given no time, you know what I mean?
Mate, he'd have been sacked about 5 or 6 times already.
Exactly. I mean, it's just horrendous from the board, really. And horrendous appointment, and it's never going to work. You know what I mean? If you're coming in to a club, without the backing of the fans, or without the fans even wanting to give you a chance, and if you start losing games, which always happens in football, the fans will turn on you, then why are you going into the job in the first place? It was not a good move from the very start. And even though I did back Rafa in certain aspects of it, looking back, we shouldn't have stuck by him. We should have sacked him by around, I think, probably December time. After that Merseyside derby, that's when we should have sacked him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it will come as a surprise to many Everton fans, kind of the decision-making that Farhad Moshiri's made in his kind of time at the club, gone for a lot of managers. But I mean, are even you surprised by, allowing Rafa to have kind of complete control over, say, transfers, like getting rid of key members of staff like Brands, head of medical, etc. They back him that way, to then turn around and sack him a couple of days later after letting him have free reign to do that.
Exactly. It just doesn't make sense. I just don't know why they did that. At first I did back Rafa. If you're going to come in to a club as a manager, you want to be backed fully. So, if someone, one of these 3 names that comes in, they want to be backed fully. And if that backing means you have to sack the head of medical or sack Marcel Brands, then so be it. Okay. But if you're not going to stick by that decision, you're not going to stick by that manager when it starts going sour, then I don't know why you backed him in the very first place. It just really was a bizarre thing. And especially we're looking at the Luca Digne stuff. That's the biggest outlier to me. That's like, why are we doing that? So we sell Luca Digne to Aston Villa. 3 days later, we go and sack Rafa Benitez after we lose to Norwich. Do you not think there's any sort of common sense within that boardroom to go, well, if we lose to Norwich, we're going to go and sack Rafa Benitez? If you're that close to going to sack Rafa Benitez, then why are you going and selling Luca Digne, who was arguably one of your best players? I'm not saying he is our best player, but arguably he was. You look at
they would have also known before that Norwich game, they would have been thinking about sacking him anyway. Like, it wouldn't have just been, they would have had it in their minds, right, if this doesn't go well, we're going to sack him. So they would have known that. It wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction. So, yeah, a lot of questionable decisions. I mean, obviously, we're going to come on to the next appointment now. This one's crucial for Moshiri, isn't it? We've seen, it was going to be Carlo who was going to be the guy for the new stadium. It was going to be Rafa. I mean, is it going to be this next guy? Who knows? But in terms of Moshiri's reign in general, I mean, how do Everton fans view Moshiri? Because he's gone through multiple managers. There's been questionable decision-making. Yes, he's put money into the club, but the recruitment, bar a couple, has been awful.
Mm-hmm. Well, you look, you can put as much money as you want into the club, but if you don't do it right, then you're screwed. You see in the likes of Newcastle now at the moment, Chris Wood, Kieran Trippier, they're getting that
Guimaraes.
Yeah, Guimaraes. Literally first year in, they're spending all this money. That's exactly what we could have done. And we didn't do it. We spent it. We pissed it up the wall on players who weren't good enough. And I think a lot of people this year, especially, I think the main... Let's dissect it a little bit, because this is the best way to explain it. The big problem with Moshiri is not him spending. It's his decision-making. It's horrendous. It's not good enough. It is... You genuinely question whether or not he watches football. He's the man who wanted Roberto Martinez in over someone like a Frank Lampard or a Duncan Ferguson. He's the man who wanted to bring in Rafa Benitez, even though everyone within the Everton community was saying, do not have Rafa Benitez as your first choice. If you have Rafa Benitez and he comes in and he does not do well, it will end like it has. Okay? My problem with Moshiri is he just isn't a football man, and he shouldn't be involved in the footballing decisions, because of the decisions he has made. Iwobi for 40 million, he's the one who pushed that. You look at all the bad decisions at Everton, and he's the guy who's always been linked back to those bad decisions. So I think with Moshiri, for him to increase his own stake and increase his own value, the best thing for him to do is to just pump money into the club and give the decisions to someone else. Then you look at Bill Kenwright. Why is Bill Kenwright still at this board? Why is he still on a board level after selling off the majority of the shareholders to Moshiri?
And he still wants Roberto Martinez.
Exactly. I think, the thing is with Kenwright, right? He has this idea that he's still living in the mid 2000s. That's the thing with Bill Kenwright. Look, Bill, you can have a season ticket, you can go and have a nice little box at Everton, but you should not be in that boardroom, mate, because it's too far gone. You're not the owner anymore. I don't know why he's having any say in the boardroom. And my problem with Bill Kenwright and Moshiri is they don't get along. With their footballing knowledge or whatever it may be, they're totally polar opposite. Bill Kenwright wants to bring in managers like David Moyes, Wayne Rooney, obviously Roberto Martinez, I think is the one they agreed on. But, you're looking at these managers and they're all ex-Everton players. They're all ex-Everton men. And he always refers to these good times with Everton, like, oh, we had such good times in my reign. Well, he's just lying, because we've never had good times. Let's be honest here. In the 2000 era, what have been our good times?
Top 4 under Moyes, that's probably it.
Yeah, top 4 under Moyes, FA Cup final, FA Cup semi-final, European nights a few times under Koeman and Moyes. I mean, the best times were under Moyes. And to be honest with you, half of that was down to Moyes, not the owners. And I think what you also see with the board level is Brands did not have a say within it. He did not have a say. And you know what? I don't think there's any fault we can lay on Brands now. At first, I thought it was his fault, but it really isn't his fault. And there's also another guy, and you might know his name, but I can't remember his name. But he's someone who's not employed by the club. Asmir Kiev or something like that. I'm
not sure.
Whatever. I don't know his name. You guys might know his name. Okay. He's the guy who's in Moshiri's ear, pretty much.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's saying, go and get Pereira. He's the guy who went, go and get Iwobi. He's the guy in Moshiri's ear, and he's not even employed by the club. You know, there's a reason for why Arsenal did not let Moshiri and this other guy come in and take over, because they knew that they'd ruin the club. And that's what Moshiri's doing right now. He's ruining the club. And I don't care about your this stadium or whatever. Okay, fund us, fund this football club, but don't make the decisions, because you're obviously not competent enough to make those decisions. Let's relate this to someone like a Man United. The Glazers, all they should be doing is pumping money into it. They shouldn't be making footballing decisions. It should be down to football and men. And that's why at Man United, you're seeing a problem where they're getting all these players like Lingard, Martial, you know, Pogba. All these players are effectively getting frozen out or just not getting new contracts because people at the top don't know what they're doing. So if you want to relate to something like that and gather an understanding, that's sort of what it's like at Everton right now. We've got businessmen in charge of football and decisions, and it's not good enough. You then look at the manager. The fact that we even employed Rafa Benitez is a sham. And looking at these managerial candidates now, okay. Actually, we'll get into it. We'll get into the managerial candidates. I'll wait start going around.
Well, I'll just very briefly before we get into them. How important is it that Everton also address appointing a new sporting director as well? And do you have any information on their hunt for one? Is there a hunt for one underway, or is it all focused on the manager at the moment?
I think it's all focused on the manager. We were getting linked to that the Brighton one. No chance we're going to get him. I haven't seen anyone. We haven't been linked to any sporting director. I think, to be honest with you, is that top priority at the moment? I don't think it is. I think the top priority right now is give it to Lampard. Look, you'll all know what I want. I've been saying Lampard in since the very start, and I will continue to say Lampard in, okay, because I think Lampard would do absolute wonders for us. But I think you just give it to whoever comes in, and whoever does come in, he decides one or two more transfers, because we do need one or two more transfers, you know, and we have got deadline day to do something. So let's bring in a new man, give him to the end of the season, and then just the priority for now is to stay in the league. If you stay in the league, which is very easy to do, by the way, okay, I've seen a lot of people coming on here scaremongering, saying, oh no, we're going to get relegated, Kieran. This is the end of Everton Football Club, especially on Twitter. But we've got to look on Twitter. The reason why people, and this is just a piece of advice for anyone watching, if you're getting scared of what people are saying on Twitter, they're just doing it for clicks. If they're coming on here saying, we're going to finish bottom of the league, you know, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, some of them are just doing it for clicks. Some of them have genuine concerns, but let's be honest here, you know, we can easily sort of get away from the relegation zone. But I mean, look,
we're gonna move into the candidates now, the final three. It's a bit like a X Factor judges' houses, this little system, isn't it? You know, the final three putting their pitch to Moshiri. But one guy who has ruled himself out, I just wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously an Everton legend, an Evertonian through and through. Everton, Rooney saying today, I don't know if it was today or he's come out and said this, you know, Everton approached his agent and asked for an interview for the job and he turned it down. He says he thinks he's going to be a Premier League manager and he's ready for that, but he wants to respect his job at Derby. I mean, what are your thoughts on him coming out and saying that? And ultimately, would you have liked to have seen Wayne Rooney, or do you just think it's more of a nice story than a sort of a right appointment?
I don't think it was the right time for Rooney. I think that Rooney hasn't finished his job at Derby yet. I think Rooney wants to make sure he stays up this year with Derby, and then you'll see what happens with him, because you got to respect him for saying that, man. You know what I mean? He wants to keep Derby up this year. His priority right now is not thinking about the future. It's not thinking about, oh, I could be a Premier League manager or whatever. His priority is keeping Derby up, and I think that's professionalism at its highest order, because you cannot fault him. You know, I don't think I would have wanted to see Rooney come in, because I want to see what you can do with this Derby team. And him actually coming in as Everton manager, how would he do as Everton manager? I don't think it's any different to how Lampard would do or how Duncan Ferguson would do. I feel like Rooney needs to build up a CV, you know, get some experience. Obviously, when we say get some experience, we mean actually, you know, fight it out, grind it out with Derby and see how you go. And then after that, you can either come to Everton if the opportunity arises or go to another Premier League club. Because when we mean experience, we mean, you know, having a proper job there. And Rooney hasn't completed his job at Derby yet. You know, Lampard has completed his job at Derby and he completed it at Chelsea. Duncan Ferguson hasn't got that experience yet. You know, Gerrard got his experience at Rangers, completed his job, then made his move to Aston Villa. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, to an extent, completed his job at that Swedish. What was it?
It was at Molde in Norway,
Yeah.
and he'd been at Cardiff as well. So he'd had a few years of managerial experience. So yeah, I'd probably agree that Rooney does need a little bit more. It would have been like a nice romantic appointment, but I do respect him for actually saying that, you know what, I need to stay and finish this job, because it's so easy to see like, oh God, a link to a Premier League job, and like you don't know when one of those is going to come again, and to take it. So I do respect him for actually holding his hands up, because it's very easy in that position to think, but yeah, a Premier League job, and I've like barely been a manager for a year. So fair play to him on that front as well. I think it's a difficult one though for Everton. Obviously, you've got the final three candidates: Lampard, Duncan Ferguson, and Vitor Pereira. I don't know if it's the right. I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? You want kind of an up and coming manager. I mean, ideally, you'd like maybe someone experienced as well. But for these young managers, I mean, let's start with Frank Lampard, the favourite for the job. Obviously, a guy that I know a lot about. He's been a legend at Chelsea as a player. Had a great season as a manager, first season with a transfer ban. Eden Hazard going to Real Madrid, managed to get us top four whilst blooding a lot of young talents like Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, Reece James, etc. Second season, the wheels fell off, and it doesn't matter who you are at Chelsea when that happens. There's only one outcome there. He's taken a bit of time out of the game now, well over a year, well, just over a year now. He was close to taking the Norwich job, but turned it down. I think this would be a great job for him. It really would. You, mate, have been banging the Lampard drum for a while now, really since Rafa left. What is it that attracts you to Lampard and makes you want him so much over the others?
I think I've got 6 reasons, I think. Yeah. So they'll all intertwine them into one, really. So the first one about Lampard is he does play modern football. That's the key for me. He plays modern football. He plays it out from the back and he presses high. You see with the likes of Mason Mount, he developed Mason Mount into a presser, into a real sort of number 10. He really developed him and a lot of other youngsters. And that sort of links to my second point as well. He will start playing these youngsters. He will. He promoted the likes of Reece James, Billy Gilmore, Mason Mount, Moshiri, Hudson-Odoi. All these players really developed under Lampard, and I want to see something like that at Everton. So I want to see the likes of Anthony Gordon, Jared Brantwaite, Lewis Dobbin, who's recently signed a new contract on Yango. I want to see all these players start really progressing on, getting first team football at Everton, and getting priority over the likes of Rondon, over the likes of Iwobi, Michael Keane, Mason Holgate. And I don't think Lampard's any stranger to freezing out players who aren't good enough. You're seeing it with Rudiger, you're seeing it with Alonso. They weren't good enough. At Lampard's time, they were not good enough, were they, really? And there's a few other players. And I think what you'll see with Lampard coming in is you'll go, well, if you don't want to play for the club, and you don't want to play for the badge, and you don't want to buy into my system, then you're not going to play. It's as simple as that. We're going to go and bring in these other players. And I think with Lampard as well, what we got to look at is he's already got experience. He's got experience at Derby. I don't think he failed at Derby. I think that, look, everyone goes on about this whole 6 for 6, and he lost the playoff finals. I think that's a learning curve. I'm going to spin that. I think that losing the playoff final might have been a good thing for him in the long term, because he's going to learn from that, and he's going to go, well, you know what, how can I improve next time? You look at his time at Chelsea, that first year was very successful. No one thought you were going to get top 4 at all. And then you also look at the FA Cup. Could you have won the FA Cup against Arsenal? Yeah. Well, I just think it was on the day. Arteta did just outclass Lampard. To be perfectly honest with you, Arteta is a better tactician than Lampard. So Arteta is always going to win that battle against Lampard. So there are obviously parts of his game where he needs to improve, especially it seems like when it goes to finals. But if you're taking Everton to an FA Cup final this year, I ain't going to complain too much. You know what I mean? So we'll have to see, man. And I think with Lampard as well, another sort of thing about him is he's a key figure. He's a sort of role model for those players in the dressing room. What you're missing at Everton at the moment are leaders in that dressing room. You haven't got any winners either, so we're missing leaders and winners. And I think if you bring in a few leaders and you bring in a few winners into that dressing room, a lot more players, you're going to see a lot more players actually play better. Okay, I think Everton are genuinely, right, and this might be a deluded statement or whatever it may be, I think Everton are 2 or 3 experienced leaders or winners away from finishing in the Conference League. Because I think the problem that you've got at Everton is this. We haven't got a number 10. We haven't got a centre-back. And we haven't got, I would say, another experienced player in that dressing room to really drive that team forward. But what we have got is England's best keeper in Jordan Pickford. We've also got one of England's best youngsters in Ben Godfrey. Defensively, him and Konza are really up there. Konza and Tomori, I'll give credit to Tomori where it's due. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he could be a star on his day. Richarlison can be as well. Decore and Alan, I would argue, is a very strong pivot from it. That's at least Europa League pivot there.
Yeah.
So the players I've just mentioned there are very much Europa League level, and I think we'll also throw into the hat there the likes of Damari Gray. And you're looking at it and you're going, we've got these players here who are quality, but they're just not fighting. They're just not working. And how do you change that? Well, the way you change it is by freezing out the players who aren't doing well. Your Michael Keanes, your Mason Holgates, I'm not even going to have a go at Rondon, to be fair. Iwobi. Okay, so those are the three main ones. You freeze out those players. You don't get them you don't play them players anymore. You bring in the youngsters instead of them. And then you bring in some leaders and you bring in some winners. Will Lampard be able to do that in his first year? No. Okay, because we're going to have to wait till the summer to really get some good transfers in. However, what Lampard will do, he'll steady the ship. He'll tell everyone what it means to be a leader. He'll tell everyone what it means to be a winner, especially. And we need that sort of winner mentality. And the way we avoid relegation under Lampard is by going out winning against. We come back in a month, let's say.
Yeah.
We've already won against Newcastle, Leeds, Southampton. No one's talking about a relegation battle with us.
No.
That's all it takes off Lampard. All I'm asking for off Lampard is 3 wins. It might be a hard ask.
Yeah.
But I don't think it is.
Maybe
he's going to get 2 weeks to work on it. He's probably going to get someone like a Loftus-Cheek or Dele Alli through the door as well. I think he could really smash this next month.
It's another appeal to Lampard as well is that the guy's got pulling power as well in the transfer market in terms of his connections with Chelsea, in terms of getting young players on loan. You mentioned Loftus-Cheek, that's a possibility. I'm sure there's other lads in the academy. I'm sure potentially Billy Gilmore he could maybe get as well. Not necessarily this window, but in future. I mean, that's got to be appealing to Everton, his connections and the fact that he does have pulling power in the transfer market because of his playing days.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? We might see Mason Mount coming in through the door.
No chance.
He wants to link up back with his boy. But, seriously, jokes aside, we need to find the next Mason Mount.
Yeah.
Now, what do I mean by the next Mason Mount? Well, I mean, who's going to be that guy who will be developed heavily under Lampard? And I think we've already got him in our team. And a lot of people say I look like him. I think we've already got him. It's Anthony Gordon. He can be our next Mason Mount. Not in the sense of the same player, but in the sense of how much we can develop him as a player. He really could progress on and be a regular starter for Everton under Lampard. So we will just have to see. That might be a bold statement for you to hear what I've just said there. But I don't mean that Anthony Gordon's going to be lifting the Champions League trophy in the next 2 years. What I mean is he will progress from this player who scores probably once or twice every season to a player that scores 7 or 8 goals.
Yeah.
Or at least gets 10 goal contributions a season. He really will progress under Lampard. So there's many positives with Lampard. And for me, when we talk about these 3 candidates now, you're looking at Duncan Ferguson, Lampard or Pereira. I think it's an easy decision, to be honest with you.
I would agree as well. Obviously, providing he wants the job, which I'm sure he would. It's a massive. At the end of the day, Everton obviously in the mud a bit at the moment. It's a massive football club, and there's huge potential there. New stadium. Mm. The playing squad, as bad as they're doing at the moment, it's not awful. It's a handful of decent signings away from actually being a good squad and being competitive for those kind of Europa League places. And if Lampard's given the time, I do believe he can definitely do that. He is good enough, and this will be a very good experience for him. And I'm sure he's learned a lot from his time at Chelsea about things that he would do differently. And I think having managed big egos in the Chelsea dressing room, I think going to Everton is I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but he's going to have that experience and he should be able to manage any big egos slightly easier. Obviously, he's going to have a big task. He's going to have a big task on his hands if he does go in. Is he going to be able to keep the likes of Richarlison at the club? Does Richarlison still want to be there come the summer? I'm not potentially speculating there, but there could be a chance he may look to move on potentially. So there's some big players that, as well as bringing some in, he's got to try and keep the better players at the club as well. Arsenal interested in the likes of Calvert-Lewin. I wouldn't be surprised to potentially see a summer move there. or definitely try and make that happen. Same with Richarlison, as I mentioned, and maybe some others. So it's going to be important that he keeps the big players at the club as well as bringing the others in. But I think, out of the three candidates, it really is a no-brainer. But we'll cover the other two anyway. Let's go on to Everton legend Duncan Ferguson. He's been in interim charge before. When I can't remember who it was sacked, but he was an interim charge. It might have been after
Marco Silva. Marco Silva's got sacked
after Marco Silva. Yeah, he came in, so he's been there before. Managers that have come in have kept him on. Ancelotti kept him in the backroom staff. Rafa kept him in the backroom staff. Well-respected figure at the club. I mean, I'm not sure if he's really got that much of a shout of being the permanent manager. Toffee TV, obviously the main Everton fan channel, reporting from Alan Myers Media that understanding that Duncan Ferguson would take the job for the rest of the season and has the support of the players. So perhaps it's not going to be it wouldn't be a long-term contract for Ferguson. I mean, could you envisage a situation where they put Duncan Ferguson in charge until the end of the season and then Frank Lampard takes over for the start of next season? Or, I mean, what are your thoughts on Duncan Ferguson? Do you really think he's got a chance at this job?
I mean, on the surface of it, it does somewhat make sense. You know, keep him till the end of the season. Let him steady the ship. This is the phrase that's being thrown around of Duncan Ferguson. You bring Duncan Ferguson in, he steadies the ship. But if Frank Lampard comes in, or if there's any talk about Frank Lampard becoming our next manager, Duncan Ferguson has no role at Everton anymore. I don't think. I think that why would Lampard wait for another 6 months?
No.
There's no point. I think that you may as well get him in now. And with Duncan Ferguson, with all due respect to Duncan Ferguson, right? He has tactically, would he be up for the Premier League? Well, he hasn't managed anywhere else. And what Duncan Ferguson needs is to go out and get some experience.
Yeah.
This is my main criticism of Duncan Ferguson, is that even though he did brilliant in his first interim role, you've seen it against Aston Villa, we were shambolic.
Awful.
If that was a performance, if that was a Rafa Benitez performance, we'd be absolutely scrutinising the manager. And I think with Duncan Ferguson, he needs to go out, Championship club, League One club, wherever it may be, Scottish League, whatever. Scottish League would actually work for him, to be fair, thinking about it. You know, whatever it may be. Go out, get some experience, go and manage there for 1, 2, 3 years, whatever it may be, and then come back whenever the opportunity arises for itself. There's no point in my book for him coming in as an interim manager. The players may like him, so be it. I think the players would like Lampard. I think the players would like anyone who walks through the door, as long as it's not Victor Pereira or Rafa Benitez. they'll like whoever walks through the door. So I think with Duncan Ferguson, that's what I would say. Go and get some experience. And will he steady the ship? I was
going to say, mate. If Everton were to appoint him for the rest of the season and kick this managerial thing down the line to the summer, I think that's a massive, massive risk. Duncan Ferguson, he's part of a coaching staff, fine, well respected by our players, fine, but to throw him into the deep end with a task of trying to keep Everton in the Premier League, where he's managed a handful of games. It's a massive arse, and it's a big, big gamble that could spectacularly backfire. You've got Frank Lampard, who is ready and available. If he wants the job, why would you not do it now? So for me, the only way Duncan Ferguson makes sense is if Lampard says no. That is the only. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, that's the only situation I can envisage that Ferguson would be put in charge, because Lampard's not going to say yes, but I want to take over in the summer. He's ready now. He's been out of the game over a year. As you said, why would he wait 6 more months? So, as much of a Everton legend as Duncan Ferguson is, there's only really one way that he gets a job, and that's with Frank Lampard saying no. And I think Frank will not keep Ferguson in the backroom staff. I think he's very much got his own team, his own ideas of who he wants to bring in. So, I mean, would you feel that would be the end of Duncan Ferguson at Everton?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think to be honest with you, it probably is a blessing in disguise. No offense to Duncan, but we've been harping on for about the past, I would say, 2-3 years. He needs to go out and get some experience. If he ever wants to become our manager, he needs to go out and get some experience. So I think it would be a blessing in disguise for him. And to put it simply, Lampard wouldn't have him on.
He wouldn't.
Lampard's got his own team. Lampard's got his own crew. I think it was with Rafa Benitez, he kept Duncan on to keep the fans on side.
Yeah.
With I think Carlo's a genuine admirer of Duncan Ferguson. I think that was an exception to the rule. So, yeah, I think that's Duncan's time done at Everton.
I mean, let's move on. Let's move on to the final candidate then. Not popular amongst the fan base, I don't think. That's Vitor Pereira. The guy's a bit of a journeyman manager. He's been at Porto. He's been at Olympiacos. He's been in China with Shanghai. I think he's been in Fenerbahce as well. Someone that doesn't seem to stay at a club for more than 1 to 2 seasons, which is always a bit alarming. He was interviewed for the job back when Marco Silva was sacked in 2019. Ultimately, didn't get it then. Everton fans not keen on him. Before I get your thoughts on him, mate, what did you think of him coming out and speaking about how his first interview went in the media? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a manager do that before.
It's stupidity. Who allowed him to do that? Then? Who allowed them to do that? It's just absolute stupidity. You know what? Sky loved that. Sky loved that. They got that interview there. You know what I mean? They absolutely loved it. But it's just genuine stupidity. I just don't know why he did that. I don't know why he... It baffles the mind because it never happens to any other Premier League club. But, and I hope that interview really has taken him out of the running. He's honestly, he's got an ego on him. And I think it's already a lot of red flags happening here. If he's going out on an interview saying this, that, the other, that's what's happening at Everton, he's going to, the board are going to be a pushover to him. So he's going to, dictate everything that's happening. And I think it also shows that he's going to be one of them people. If it starts going wrong, he's going to go, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's everyone else's fault. So really avoid him. He plays 3-4-3. Avoid him again. He got relegated with 1860 Munich. Avoid him. There's many red flags on this guy, and I don't want to speak too much about him because I really don't want to think of the idea of him.
I mean, are you surprised that he's even made the final 3?
I don't know how he's even got here. I don't know where he's came from. I don't know why we're going in for a guy who got sacked from Fenerbahce about 2-3 months ago. After 6 months, he got sacked at Fenerbahce. Yeah,
mate, literally his CV, as I reeled off, mate, honestly, he's not been anywhere more than a couple of seasons, really. He moves all over the place.
Yeah.
That's got to be red flags as well. I mean, it would be. I mean, it would. I just don't know Moshiri. He's made poor decisions in the past. I'd be very surprised now if he were to make another awful decision and put Pereira in. I mean, I think there'd be outrage, wouldn't there, if Pereira was appointed?
I think it's very simple what we need to do next. I don't know how Pereira's got in here. He's only done well at Porto, and that was at the very start of his career. Duncan Ferguson, look, it's just there's so many cons with this Pereira guy that I don't even want to. I don't know what to say on him. I think you just have a look at what he's done and have a look at his CV, and that speaks enough for himself. He said to all the Everton fans, "Go and look at my CV." On that interview, he said, "Go and look at my CV." I have, mate, and it's absolutely shambolic.
Yeah, honestly, it's all over the place.
Shambolic. And and I think I want to end this note on Pereira with this. There has been graffiti on Goodison Park saying Pereira out, Lampard in. He's not even in the job yet.
No.
And if you're going to appoint him after what has happened with Rafa Benitez, that is just insanity in my book. Repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So I want to just say now, Lampard in. I've been saying it for the past 2-3 weeks, haven't I? And I think everyone's changed their tune on Lampard and everyone's back on the Lampard train now, which I love to see.
Yeah, no, I think so, mate. I mean, from an outside perspective, I'd love Lampard to get the job, see him back managing in the Premier League, see what he's learned, see what he can do at Everton. It's a big job, and he's definitely the right man for the job. I mean, out of the 3 candidates, it's a no-brainer. It really is. But obviously, we've seen Moshiri and co make poor decisions before. So, I mean, there's no guarantees they won't make another one, but this is really an open goal, as it were, to get Lampard in, and it really should be the right decision. I mean, as you said, we should be getting information on that appointment, well, either today at some point.
Tonight, mate. It'll be tonight.
Yeah, could be tonight imminently, or certainly over the weekend, and possibility of some new signings maybe coming in on deadline day, which would help Everton out in their quest to kind of move up the table away from that relegation zone. But yeah, it does need to be. It needs to be like Frank Lampard. And we'll just have to wait and see. It should be a formality. He's the favourite. I mean, expected to want to take the job, so it's just waiting for that official confirmation, I guess. But yeah, I guess for you, mate, as long as it's not Vitor Pereira and other Everton fans, then I think you guys will be pretty happy. But yeah, I mean, that's just Kieran's thoughts on the 3 candidates down to the final 3, as I said, and an announcement should be imminent. Both kind of hoping it'll be Frank Lampard. But yeah, guys, that's just thoughts on the situation. Should be updated fairly shortly on that permanent appointment. Make sure you check out Kieran's channel, subscribe to his channel. I've got it across the banner at the bottom, linked all his socials in the video description, help him get to 10k subscribers. Guys, make sure you smash a like on the video and please do subscribe to the channel as well. Not quite on the road to 10k, on the road to 300 by the end of the month. Need 17 more. So if you're not subscribed, please click that button and help us get there by the end of this month. That would be greatly appreciated. Kieran, pleasure as always to talk all things Everton, mate. Hope you get the appointment you want. And we'll catch up soon, mate. Cheers for tuning in, guys.